It is crime against innocent people, and it needs to be addressed as such. We brought in laws across this country having more effect in terms of crimes of violence against not just Aboriginal women, but women and persons more generally, and we remain committed to that course of action.
As Prime Minister Stephen Harper a few days saying no to the idea of a national inquiry into murdered and missing Aboriginal women, saying let's deal with crime. But there's mounting pressure, especially political pressure. Premier Gibbs, Premier Wynne, even Premier Brad Wall out of Saskatchewan saying it's time for a national public inquiry. One man that's looked into this issue and says no is Wally Oppal. He's the former BC Attorney General. He joins us now from Vancouver. Mr. Oppal, thanks for coming in first off, but let me ask you, why, you seem offside with a lot of the currently elected politicians. Do you have more leeway to speak your mind now that you're not the Attorney General?
Well, I'm independent. I was independent when I did the inquiry, and it's my view after doing the inquiry for a better part of 2 years, over 2 years.
This is the, and sorry, I should have said that off the top, that you did an inquiry for the province of British Columbia.
Yes.
Into this
matter. But having said that, the issues that we dealt with are issues that are national, and that is the poverty and the racism and the drug addiction, the homelessness. Those are common issues, and in fact, there were 3 senior police officers, including Chief Constable Jennifer Evans from Peel Regional, who took part in our inquiry. So the police really treated it like a national inquiry.
So and you've come out of this and said, no, we don't need another inquiry. Let's just deal with the issues. But I want to bring something up that came from the RCMP report that came out in May, because, and I want to keep hitting on this, it would seem from a lot of the media discussion, a lot of the political discussion, as if Aboriginal women are murdered in this country and nobody cares and nobody does anything. And yet the solve rates for homicides is 88% for Aboriginal women, 89% for non-Aboriginal women. That is statistically the same. Why is it continually put forward as if the public doesn't care or officials don't care? I'm not saying that there isn't a problem, but the fact is it looks like police are doing just as good a job on this as they do on any other murdered woman.
Yeah, well, we did a comprehensive inquiry following the Picton investigation. And we found at that time that the police made a lot of critical errors in their investigation in that they didn't take the complaints very seriously. Having said that, we have to start dealing with some of the causes of the violence and some of the poverty and the drug addiction and all of those things that are taking place in the Aboriginal communities. And if we're really going to help the Aboriginal communities, that's what we have to do. You know, our inquiry lasted 2 years, over 2 years, and we had 93 days of public hearings. We went into the Aboriginal communities. We heard from Aboriginal women. Many testified here in Vancouver. Others came before us in places like Gitnau and Morristown and Hazelton and Prince George and Prince Rupert. And so we had this inquiry that went on for 93 days. And we wrote a 1,400-page report in which we criticized the police for what they didn't do, and also gave some of the recommendations as to how we can prevent this from taking place in the future. So we really have to get into some of the causes of crime.
Let's get into what those are then. We're talking about women that are quite often involved in prostitution. It's a very dangerous profession, and I don't think anything will ever change that, even legalization. It's going to be a dangerous profession to be involved in. But also, you've mentioned it already, drug and alcohol addiction. So how do you deal with those issues to stop
Well, those are social problems that we really need to deal with, and we have to get involved in education, get into more rehabilitation, health care, and all of those factors are relevant because the women who were the victims of violence in the inquiry we did were sex trade workers who were vulnerable. And so the police didn't do a great job of investigating them. But more than that, we have to ask ourselves, why were they on the streets to begin with? Why don't we start getting to some of the causes, the poverty, the drug addiction, the homelessness? Those are the things that are relevant. This is particularly so in the Aboriginal communities throughout Canada. I don't think there's any question of the poverty that exists and the violence that follows from the poverty and the drug addiction. Those are the factors that we really have to deal with. We need action. We don't need more inquiries.
All right. Mr. Opel, thanks for joining us. And I think if I could sum up what you're saying, it's deal with the problem further upstream rather than at the end, which results in a dead body.
Exactly. You know, by the time the justice system and the police get involved in it, it's usually too late. The suffering and the victimization has already taken place.
Mr. Opel, thanks again. We'll chat soon.
Thank you.